Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. St. Mary's School is located quietly on the outskirts of the city, standing out with its ancient architecture bearing a strong European influence. But amidst that peaceful appearance, there exists a secret that all students whisper to each other, which is the 4th floor girls' restroom. It is said that for many years, no one has dared to enter that place after 10 p.m. The dark wooden door is always silent, but the eerie echoes are enough to send a chill down the spine of anyone passing by. A new transfer student does not believe in rumors. She is curious by nature, always wanting to find out the truth. On the first day, when she heard her classmates say that the 4th floor restroom was haunted, she laughed coldly. To Emma, it was all just horror stories made up by students to scare each other. But she did not know that the truth was more terrifying than any rumor. James, Emma's classmate, quickly warned her. He said that a few years ago, a female student had mysteriously disappeared right in that very bathroom. When her friends found it, the door was locked from the inside, but when they broke it open, it was completely empty. Since then, anyone who entered this place felt an unusual coldness. The mirror blurred and showed faces that did not belong to the person standing in front of it. Emma listened with half belief, but in her heart, a strange feeling began to grow, both scared and curious. That night, Emma decided to test it out. St. Mary's School at night was strangely dark. The yellow lights in the hallway flickered as if they were about to go out. The sound of the wind whistling through the old glass windows made the space even more eerie. Emma's footsteps echoed on the tiled floor, the closer she got to the 4th floor. The colder the air became, as if someone was watching her. When she arrived, she stood still, looking at the wooden door that had been stained with time. There were scratches on the surface, as if someone had tried to escape in desperation. Emma gathered her courage and pushed the door open. A groaning creak sounded, the sound lingering and making her heart pound. It was dark inside, only the moonlight shining through the small window onto the floor. The musty smell was strong, mixed with the metallic smell of dried blood. The mirror hanging on the wall reflected Emma's figure, but strangely, the image seemed to arrive a beat later than her movement. When Emma turned her head, the mirror still had her image staring straight ahead. Her eyes, lifeless. The whole room was silent, but the heavy atmosphere seemed to be pressing down on her chest. At that moment, from a bathroom at the end of the row, came the sound of water dripping slowly. Emma trembled, but tried to calm herself, taking steps towards it. The sound of water became clearer and clearer, mixed with the soft breathing of someone standing inside. As Emma reached out to touch the door, a loud bang made her jump back in panic. The door shook as if someone had punched it from the inside. While the entire floor was completely empty, Emma broke out in a cold sweat, but her curiosity wouldn't let her give up. She turned back to look at the mirror hanging on the wall, and this time, the reflection was no longer her. In the mirror, there was a girl wearing a St. Mary's uniform, her long hair covering her face, standing right behind Emma. She turned around in panic, but behind her was only empty space. Emma's heart was pounding, her hands were shaking, but her eyes flashed with determination. She knew she had entered a place that was not simply a rumor, and the real answer was still hidden somewhere in this cold, dark room. Emma swallowed, backing away towards the exit. But just as she was about to step out, the door suddenly slammed shut in front of her. An invisible force held it tight, preventing her from opening it. From the restrooms, a series of giggles rang out, the distorted sound echoing throughout the space. Thick darkness enveloped. The moonlight on the small window also disappeared, as if covered. Emma knew that she had accidentally opened a gate connecting the living world and the other world. What awaits Emma behind the door of the 4th floor women's restroom? Will she have the courage to face the secret hidden in the darkness, or will she become the next victim to disappear without a trace? Let's follow the next episode to find out the horrifying truth that awaits ahead. Emma shivered against the cold door, her breathing ragged in the unusual silence. The distorted laughter from the stalls gradually died down, replaced by a terrifying silence as if the world had stopped. Her heart was beating so fast that she could hear it clearly. Looking around, Emma realized that the mirror hanging on the wall no longer reflected her accurately. In the mirror, the figure of a girl in an old uniform stood there, her long hair covering her face, her pale hands hanging down as if lifeless. Emma stepped back, but the image in the mirror moved forward. The ghost slowly raised its hand, its head gradually raised to reveal eyes as dark as an endless pit. Fear flooded Emma's body, causing her limbs to freeze. She couldn't scream, couldn't move, could only stare at that horror. For the first time in her life, Emma understood that the ghost stories she once thought were fiction could become reality right before her eyes. As Emma closed her eyes tightly to avoid it, a slow creaking sound came from the last bathroom stall, as if someone was pushing the door from the inside. The sound echoed in the dark space, making the air even thicker. The stall door slowly opened, but instead of someone walking out, a hazy white smoke crept out, crawling along the tiled floor as if it had consciousness. Emma took another step back, her back against the wall, her eyes fixed on the approaching smoke. In the smoke, she vaguely saw a face appear and then disappear, its lips moving unclear words as if wanting to convey a message from the underworld. The sound of the wind outside suddenly whistled through the small window, causing the glass to shake violently. From the large mirror, the ghost suddenly reached out as if wanting to penetrate the glass to touch Emma. Her heart stopped beating. She tried to turn around and run to the door, pulling hard on the handle, but the door was as hard as stone. Her whole body trembled. Emma frantically knocked on the door, hoping someone would hear, but the hallway outside was silent. Not a single sound responded. Only the creepy laughter echoed from deep within the mirror, lingering on and on in despair. Emma looked again, and this time, the ghost in the mirror was no longer standing alone. Behind it, there seemed to be many different faces, all blurry, all female students in St. Mary's uniforms. They looked at Emma with empty eyes, without light, but filled with something like resentment. The sight made Emma feel her stomach twist, cold sweat running down her spine. She realized that this was not just a lost soul, but maybe a whole group of ghosts imprisoned in this space. Suddenly, the ceiling light flashed violently and then went out. The entire room was plunged into darkness. Emma heard light footsteps, as if someone was circling round her. She strained her eyes in the dark, but could only see faint white shadows passing by. A cold hand suddenly touched her shoulder. Emma screamed, turning around, but behind her was only empty space. Her breathing was ragged, her body trembling uncontrollably. She knew that she was no longer in a normal place. This room was the thin line between life and death. Emma collapsed to the floor, trying to grab the phone in her pocket. The screen lit up, but the signal was completely gone. Only an eerie buzzing sound was emitted. On the screen, the front camera image suddenly showed her face, But behind her appeared another figure, long hair covering it, deep black eyes staring straight into the lens. Emma screamed and threw the phone away. The sound of shattering rang out loudly, but when she looked back, the phone was still intact, the screen shining brightly on the cold tile floor in a moment of despair. Emma suddenly heard a whisper right next to her ear, a deep female voice, dragging out each word, as if coming from a faraway place. The voice mentioned a strange name, along with a warning about a sin that had been buried for many years. Emma was bewildered before she could understand. The ghost in the mirror suddenly moved, moving faster, as if about to step out of there to swallow. Her will Emma find a way to escape this deadly room? Or will she be dragged into the souls trapped in the 4th floor women's bathroom forever? Stay tuned in the next episode to discover what awaits her in the darkness. Emma sat down on the cold floor, her arms hugging her knees, the whispers still ringing in her ears. They were unclear, but each sound slowly penetrated her mind like a knife cutting into pieces of her will. She heard the words repeated over and over again, like a curse that had been cursed for years. In the dense darkness, Emma clearly felt someone standing very close, cold breath on the back of her neck, making the hairs on her neck stand up. The ceiling lights suddenly flashed on for a moment and then went out again. In that brief light, Emma caught a glimpse of a pale foot floating in the air just above the last bathroom stall. The sight made her heart stop, her blood run cold. When the light disappeared, there was only darkness and the whispers continued, this time more clearly, like a story told in a distorted voice. Emma realized that she was listening to fragments of the past, the haunted stories that were attached to this room. She stood up slowly, walking towards the mirror hanging on the wall. At this moment, the mirror no longer reflected her, but instead the image of an old classroom. The rows of empty desks and chairs, the windows closed, and in the middle of the room was a girl wearing a St. Mary's uniform, sobbing. Emma reached out to touch the mirror, the cold glass trembling as if it had a heartbeat. The image in the mirror faded, revealing a group of female students surrounding the girl, mocking laughter filled with malice. Emma realized that this was not a mere illusion, but the memory of a soul that had been trapped in the school. The whisper rang out again, this time right next to Emma's ear, making her jump. The voice was weak but clear, mentioning betrayal, pain, and unjust death. Those words were like a knife cutting deep into Emma's mind, making her both panic and sympathy. She began to understand that this bathroom was not simply a place of rumors, but an invisible tomb where pain and resentment were locked up over the years at that moment. From the direction of the bathroom stalls came the sound of rushing water, so strong that it seemed as if someone was deliberately turning on all the faucets. The sound echoed in the narrow space, mixed with the increasingly strong, musty smell. Water spilled onto the tiled floor, flowing towards Emma, cold as ice. In the water, blurry figures appeared briefly, faces distorted with fear, eyes wide open, pleading for help. Emma backed away, her heart pounding, but her heavy legs seemed to be pulled down by an invisible force in a moment of despair. Emma suddenly heard her name being called. She turned around, but saw no one. The voice rang out again, weak as if from a faraway place, begging her not to go any further. Emma choked, her eyes brimming with tears. But her instincts told her that if she didn't find out, she would never get out of this place. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, then walked slowly towards the last bathroom stall, where everything seemed to converge. The door to the stall opened slightly, and the inside was as dark as a bottomless pit. Emma reached out to push it open, but immediately a cold air rushed out, causing her to retreat. In that darkness, a pair of bright eyes appeared, staring at her without blinking. A terrifying screech rang out, the sound lingering like the wind blowing through a crevice in a grave. Emma screamed, turning and running towards the door. But once again, the door was tightly shut, not moving. The whispers now turned into screams, each sound hitting Emma's head, causing her to fall down in shock. She tried to stand up with all her might, but her trembling legs wouldn't listen. The image in the mirror changed again, this time to a girl hanging in this very bathroom, her face swollen and purple, her eyes wide open, staring straight at Emma. The horrifying sight made her scream in despair, her whole body trembling. Can Emma decipher the secrets hidden in these horrifying whispers and memories? Or will she be forever engulfed in the dark truth? Stay tuned in the next episode to find out what awaits her behind the cold door. Emma collapsed to the floor, breathing heavily, her heart pounding in her chest. The screams echoing in her head finally stopped, leaving a terrifying silence. The space was dark, only the steady sound of dripping water could be heard from somewhere. Emma's trembling hands pressed against the cold tiled floor, each finger numb from the creeping cold. She raised her head to look towards the last room, where the old wooden door shook slightly as if some creature was hiding inside. Emma's eyes couldn't leave that door. A cold air emanated from the crack, causing the temperature in the room to drop a few degrees. In the darkness, a pair of bright eyes appeared again, staring at her. Emma took a few steps back, but inside her head, a whisper urged her to open that door. She bit her lip, her hand grasping the small necklace in front of her chest, as if searching for a bit of courage. The scary stories her friends had told her flashed through her mind, but now they were no longer scary stories, but had become terrifying reality right before her eyes. Emma took a deep breath, stood up, and slowly walked towards it. The sound of her shoes clacking echoed, mixed with her heavy breathing. When she placed her hand on the door of the room, her whole body trembled violently. The peeling paint made the surface of the door rough, cold enough to chill her to the bone. She gently pushed, and the door creaked open bit by bit. It was pitch black inside, and a strong stench wafted out, making Emma choke. At that moment, she felt a cold hand reach out from the darkness and lightly touch her wrist. Emma screamed and jerked her hand back, falling backwards. The door of the room swung open completely, revealing a dark space. From inside, a blurry figure slowly appeared. It was the image of a female student with long hair covering her face, her uniform crumpled and covered in stains. She bowed her head, walking heavily towards Emma, her feet making no sound. The air seemed to freeze. Emma's every breath echoed clearly in the dead rumors. The figure approached. Emma noticed the purple bruises on the girl's neck, reminiscent of the image of the girl hanging herself in the mirror earlier. The lifeless eyes lifted up, their empty gaze staring straight at Emma. In an instant, Emma seemed to be sucked into the depths of those eyes. All the surrounding sounds disappeared, leaving only the sound of her pounding heart and a chill that pierced her bones. She tried to struggle, but her heavy feet seemed to be glued to the tiled floor. The ghost suddenly stopped. Its lips parted, emitting a hoarse sound. At first it was just a choked sob, then it turned into distorted words. Emma strained her ears to listen and realized it was a cry for help. The spirit did not want to harm her, but was trying to tell her some secret that had been buried in this school. Emma was surprised and sympathetic, but before she could react, the space around her suddenly shook violently. The mirrors hanging on the wall cracked, the faucets opened simultaneously, and the water gushed out strongly. Emma panicked, seeing a series of other female ghosts appear, hovering round the room. They did not speak, just looked at her with empty eyes. The scene was like an eternal punishment, trapping all souls within these 4 narrow walls. Emma realized that the door to the last room was not an exit, but the gate leading to the darkest truth of the story. Will Emma continue to step deeper into the unfolding secret, or will she be forever immersed in the world of unjust souls? Let's watch the next episode to find out the horrifying truth that awaits her behind the last door. Emma tried to regain her composure as a series of ghosts appeared around her. They did not rush to attack, but stood still, their soulless eyes following her as if they wanted to send her a message. In that moment, Emma felt that there was an invisible thread connecting her to the souls trapped here. She heard the whispers echoing, this time clearer, like a sad song played over and over again. The voice told of an unjust death, of a sin hidden for many years, and of a curse that could not be erased. The space around her suddenly shook. The tiles on the wall began to crack in long, winding lines, and black water seeped from the cracks onto the floor. On the mirror, the cracks spread, joining together to form distorted characters as if someone was writing from within. Emma moved closer, squinting, and realized that the words formed a single phrase: curse. Her whole body trembled, her breathing ragged. This was no longer an illusion, but a clear message from the otherworld. Ma turned to look at the female ghosts surrounding her. One of them, a long-haired girl with a bruise on her neck, slowly walked forward, her cold hand raised, pointing straight at the last room. Immediately after, all the remaining ghosts looked in the same direction. Emma understood that inside that last room was the key to deciphering this curse. But at the same time, a terrible fear came over her. She felt as if, once she entered there, she would never come out. The room suddenly echoed with screams. Not from one person, but from dozens of female voices mixed together. The sound was urgent, like long-buried cries for help. Emma covered her ears, knelt down, feeling like her head was about to explode. The long-haired ghost moved closer, its deep black eyes staring straight at Emma, as if wanting to convey the truth. In that moment, Emma saw a flash of a group of girls torturing a girl in this very bathroom. The mocking laughter, the pleading cries, and finally the deathly silence. Emma gasped, tears rolling down her cheeks. She began to understand that this place had witnessed a tragedy, and that unjust death had left a terrible curse. The creepy stories that students often whispered to each other were not just baseless rumors, but a distorted reflection of a hidden truth. Emma suddenly found herself not only an intruder, but also the only witness who could break this cycle of horror. But how to break the curse, Emma had no idea. She backed away, feeling the cold wall behind her pressed against her back. The room was getting narrower and narrower, as if the 4 walls were slowly closing in. The mirrors shattered and fell, each piece of glass flashing in the darkness. In each mirror, Emma saw her own reflection, but the face was distorted. The eyes were black and hollow, and the smile was monstrous. All of those reflections opened their mouths and whispered the same sentence: "Complete the curse." Mai screamed loudly, clutching her head, but the sound still echoed in her mind. The scream mixed with the laughter of the spirits, turning the room into a terrifying chorus. In a moment of despair, she suddenly realized that the bright eyes in the last chamber were still following her, waiting patiently. An invisible force was pulling her closer, step by step. Will Emma have the courage to enter the last chamber to discover the secret of the curse? or will she be swallowed by eternal darkness? Watch the next episode to find out what awaits her in this dark school. Emma stood still in the stuffy room, the bright eyes from the last room like two lamps in the darkness, shining straight into her mind. They did not blink, did not move, only followed her every trembling breath. Emma clearly felt that those eyes were not only looking at her body, but also piercing straight into the depths, where the memories and fears hidden for so long were being dragged out. She swallowed hard, step by step approaching the last room. Each step made a clattering sound, mixed with the sound of dripping water, creating a strange rhythm. When the distance was only a few steps, Emma felt a cold air coming from the crack in the door. A strong fishy smell like rust mixed with the smell of old mold. In her head echoed a distant whisper. This time, it was no longer a distorted sound, but each sentence was clearer, like a story being told. Emma knew she was hearing fragments of the past, paranormal stories that few people would dare to believe were real. The door to the room shook slightly, the hinges creaking as if they were crying. Emma reached out a trembling hand to place on the cold handle. As soon as she touched it, her whole body shivered, as if an electric current had passed through it. She closed her eyes tightly, took a deep breath, and then mustered up all her courage to push the door open. The darkness inside gradually opened, but instead of being empty, Emma saw a figure huddled in the corner. Long hair covering her face, shoulders shaking with each beat. The sight made her involuntarily step back. Her heart pounding, the figure slowly raised its head, its bright eyes flashing fiercely. Emma screamed, but there was no way out. The door behind her had automatically closed, trapping her in the room full of souls. The ghost stood up, its feet sliding across the tiled floor without making a sound. The face gradually became clear, deep bruises around the neck, chapped lips, pale, lifeless skin. That gaze locked onto Emma, not allowing her to turn. A way hoarse voice rang out from the ghost's mouth, telling of betrayal, of the cruel bullying that had pushed a female student to an unjust death. Emma was silent, her heart clenched as she realized that the stories she had heard were only the tip of the iceberg. The reality was much more cruel, and these souls had been trapped for decades, unable to escape. The ghost pointed to the wall behind the room, where the jagged cracks gradually formed. The shape of a hidden dormer moved closer, reaching out to touch the wall. The cold surface trembled slightly under her fingertips, as if there was an endless void on the other side. As she hesitated, the space around her suddenly darkened. The souls screamed in unison, the sound echoing and rumbling throughout the room. Water poured out from the cracks in the tiles, gradually reaching up to her ankles. Emma was terrified but still did not dare to take her eyes off the hidden door. She knew that it could be the only way out, or the path to the abyss forever. She turned back to look at the ghost, its eyes still shining brightly, as if urging her to open the door. Emma took a deep breath, her hand trembling as she placed it on the crack, but at that moment, a distorted laugh rang out from throughout the room, completely different from the tragic voice just now. The temperature dropped suddenly, darkness swallowed up all the remaining light. Emma realized that there was more than one force controlling this place, and not all of them wanted her to know the truth. Will Emma open the hidden door to find a way out, or will she fall into the trap of the dark force that is waiting? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what awaits behind the terrifying eyes in the last room. Emma stood before the cracked wall, where the cracks formed the shape of a strange door. Cold air emanated from the cracks, carrying a musty old smell as if it had been locked away for decades. She trembled as she reached out to touch the surface, each brick vibrating as if something was breathing inside. The bright eyes of the ghost in the last room followed her, unblinking, unmoving. The whole room was suffocatingly silent, except for the sound of Emma's heart pounding in her chest. She knew that behind this wall was where the truth was kept. All the haunted stories that St. Mary's students whispered to each other originated from here. But Emma also knew that opening this door meant awakening what had been sealed away. A conflicting feeling tore through her heart, extreme fear, but at the same time driven by the desire to find an answer. She took a deep breath, her hand shaking as she pressed against the crack as soon as she touched it. The wind howled in her ears, the sound of hundreds of voices whispering at once. They repeated broken sentences, someone's name, and a painful cry for help. Emma winced, clutching her head as she felt her mind being torn apart. But instead of retreating, she pushed firmly. A loud crack sounded, dust flew out, and pieces of brick fell to the floor. From the crack, a cold blue light radiated, illuminating Emma's pale face. The light did not bring warmth, but was so cold that it made her bones tremble. For a moment, Emma caught a glimpse of the past. A girl tied up, the faces of other students surrounding her, screams and cries, and then darkness engulfed everything. The scene faded quickly, leaving Emma standing frozen in front of the now open door. Inside was not a hallway or a classroom, but an endless darkness, as deep as an abyssima hesitated. Her foot half-stepped in, but then stopped. A cold hand suddenly placed itself on her shoulder. She turned around, but behind her was only empty air. The ghosts of female students appeared again, this time standing in a long line, their eyes empty but focused on the door. It was as if they were waiting for her to enter, as if their salvation depended on this decision. Emma bit her lip, her heart pounding but her eyes gradually becoming firm. She knew she couldn't turn back. She took a deep breath, stepping over the threshold. Immediately, a cold wind blew strongly, whipping her hair and uniform skirt. The space inside was dark. The smell of metal rushed straight into her nose. Emma grimaced, her hands gripping the wall tightly to keep her balance. The long-haired ghost followed behind, silently entering with her, its eyes still shining brightly in the darkness. The door behind her suddenly slammed shut, the sound echoing like a coffin being buried. Emma turned around in surprise, but it was too late. She was completely trapped in this dark space, where only the soft breathing of someone with no clear shape could be heard. From deep within the darkness, two other lights appeared, smaller but equally terrifying. They moved closer, and Emma realized that they were the eyes of other souls. Not just one, but many. More. The space began to shake. The voices of dozens of souls echoed. They told of betrayal, of a cruel joke that turned into a tragedy, and of how the school had deliberately hidden the truth. Emma clenched her hands, listening, her eyes blurred with tears. She understood that she was no longer just a witness, but had become the one with the mission to reveal the secret. But at the same time, a big question arises in her mind. Will the truth free the souls, or will it drown her forever? What will Emma find in the darkness behind the hidden door, and what secrets are waiting to be revealed? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out the terrifying truth that awaits behind. Emma stepped into the pitch-black space behind the hidden door, her heavy breathing echoing in her ears. There was no light except for the bright eyes of the long-haired ghost walking beside her. Her feet stomped on the cold tile floor, echoing like from a deep cellar. The air was thick with the smell of mold mixed with rust, making her throat constrict. Droplets of water fell from the ceiling onto her shoulders, cold as ice ahead. A pale blue light suddenly flashed, illuminating the stains on the wall. In the light, Emma saw strange images appear like a slow-motion movie. Girls in St. Mary's uniforms were gathered around a girl who had been cornered. Screams, shrill laughter, and pleas echoed, then suddenly stopped. The image disappeared in a flash, leaving Emma standing still, her hands shaking. She realized that this was the memory of the past, preserved by the resentment that had not yet dissipated day. Cold wind suddenly blew in, blowing Emma's hair. From the cracked wall, faint lines of blood appeared. We cannot escape. Her heart tightened. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She turned to look at the ghost walking beside her, its eyes still shining, its gaze filled with sorrow but also haunting. Emma suddenly understood that this spirit did not want to harm her, but was leading her to the truth that had been hidden for many years. This sound echoed from afar, like the sound of hurried footsteps. Emma held her breath, her eyes glued to the darkness. Another figure gradually appeared, small, with short hair, eyes swollen as if she had just cried. The child looked at Emma, her lips moving, but no sound came out. Behind it, tall figures appeared, their faces distorted with malice. The scene clearly recreated the cruel bullying scene that Emma had only just glimpsed in the mirror. Her heart ached as she understood that the unjust death of this female student was the cause of all the figures disappeared, leaving only the sound of sobbing echoing in the darkness. Emma crouched down, her hands covering her head, tears streaming down her face. She had never felt so clearly the pain these souls had to endure. They were not freed, trapped in a cycle of horror, and the school had chosen to remain silent, hiding the truth. This was not just a curse, but a punishment for human lies and indifference. The ceiling light in the distance flickered. Then a faint yellow light illuminated the secret room. On the wall, intricate carvings appeared, all of them names. Dozens of different names were carved deeply, messy and full of despair. Emma reached out to touch them. The lines of writing vibrated, echoing the sound of crying. She stepped back, her hand trembling. Here is the list of souls trapped in the curse. A loud bang suddenly rang out. The door behind her slammed shut. The whole room shook. Bricks fell. Dust filled the air. The ghosts appeared more densely, surrounding Emma, their empty eyes following. The whispers turned into screams, echoing so loudly that her eardrums ached. Emma fell, trying to crawl back, but the room became narrower and narrower, as if it wanted to swallow her in that moment. Emma understood that she had reached the center of the curse. This place contained all the memories, all the resentments, all the true horror stories that the school tried to cover up, and now she had become a part of it. Will Emma find a way out, or will she be trapped forever with the souls in the darkness? Watch the next episode to find out what awaits behind the door on the 4th floor. Emma trembled as she reached out to touch the names carved on the wall. Each rough letter was deeply engraved into the bricks, as if scratched by desperate nails. As soon as her fingertips brushed over a line of words, a heart-rending scream rang out in her head, shaking her entire body. Emma jerked back, but her eyes could not leave the wall full of haunting traces. Dozens, hundreds of names lay overlapping, some intact, some blurred as if erased by time. But each name carried an indescribable weight, as if containing the soul of the person who wrote them. The long-haired ghost still stood silently behind, its bright eyes unblinking, watching Emma intently. It gently raised its hand, pointing to a name in the center of the wall. a name that stood out more than anything, carved so deeply that the crimson groove spread like fresh blood. Emma moved closer, her eyes fixed on that name. As she read it silently in her mind, the whole room shook violently. Images of the past rushed in like a flood. She saw a girl being dragged into the bathroom by a group of friends. The sound of begging, screaming, and then darkness enveloped her. Emma choked, her heart aching as she watched the tragic scene unfold before her eyes. Whispers echoed everywhere, not one but many voices at the same time. They blended together, repeating that name over and over again, like a call to the soul. Emma held her head tightly, trying to block out the sounds tearing at her mind. She collapsed, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, she understood that the creepy stories that students still passed on to each other were actually echoes from souls calling for help. This wall was proof of suffering, a place to imprison all souls that could not be released. A cold wind blew from somewhere, swirling dust, making the names glow for a moment before going dark. Emma clenched her hands, taking deep breaths to calm herself. She turned back to look at the long-haired ghost, its eyes filled with sorrow. The ghost approached, its cold hand placed on Emma's shoulder. A stream of memories rushed straight into her head. Emma saw a teacher enter the bathroom, saw the girl collapse, but then turned away and left. The truth was hidden not only by the students, but also by the complicit silence of the adults Emma choked. Anger rising. She clenched her fists, looking back at the wall with the names engraved with resentment. She whispered a promise to find a way to bring the truth to light, no matter how high the price. But as soon as she finished speaking, the entire room went dark. The names began to bleed, the thick black blood staining the floor, the pungent smell rushing straight into her nose. The ghosts appeared more densely, their faces distorted and screaming. Surrounding Emma in a cold circle, the floor shook violently, each brick separated, creating deep cracks. From below the cracks, grey hands reached up, trying to pull Emma down. She struggled in panic, trying to cling to the wall. The hand clutched a name, and immediately a shrill scream rang out. The other hands retracted. Emma trembled, but realized that this wall was not only a mark of pain, but also a place that could resist the dark forces in that tense moment. Emma's eyes flashed with determination. She knew that she had to find a way to decipher the names, one by one, if she wanted to escape this place and free the wronged soul. But the darkness did not let go easily. A distorted laughter suddenly rang out from deep within the room, a different sound, stronger than all. It was not just the imprisoned soul, but also another force that was manipulating everything. Will Emma find out the true meaning of the names carved on the wall? Or will she be drowned in blood and darkness? Watch the next episode to discover the terrible truth hidden behind the wall on the 4th floor. Emma clutched the blood-soaked wall, her heart pounding as if it were about to burst. The screams of the spirits gradually died down, replaced by a laugh that echoed throughout the room. It was different from any sound Emma had ever heard. It was no longer a mournful cry or a scream of pain, but a hoarse, twisted, malicious laughter. The sound echoed from every direction, seeping into every crack in the bricks, sending chills down Emma's spine. She spun around to find the source, but saw nothing but the dense darkness that surrounded her. The laughter continued, sometimes near, sometimes far, as if it was playing with Emma's fear. She trembled, clutching her arms tightly, trying not to collapse. But the more she tried to calm herself, the deeper the laughter echoed in her mind. Emma heard a hint of mockery in it, as if whoever was behind it all was enjoying the horror she had endured. She retreated to the corner of the room, but her steps seemed to be held back by an invisible force. Blue light suddenly flashed from the cracks in the wall, illuminating a dark shadow standing in the middle of the room. The figure was tall, with no clear face, only a wide smile that stretched unnaturally from ear to ear. That smile glowed faintly, distorted, creating a strange image engraved in Emma's mind. She choked, retreated, her back hitting the wall. The shadow did not move, but the laughter grew louder and louder, echoing like hundreds of voices combined. Emma screamed, using all her strength to hit the wall, hoping to find a way out. But each hit only caused more blood to flow out, spreading to the floor. Water and blood mixed, flowing in long streaks, reflecting a strange blue light. In the broken mirrors scattered on the floor, the image of the shadow appeared more clearly, the red eyes flashing like embers. Emma realized that these were not the souls of the students being imprisoned, but another force, perhaps the one that had bound them all in this curse. She trembled, but did not give up. Emma turned back to look at the wall of engraved names, touching the central name. Immediately, the twisted laughter stopped for a moment, replaced by an angry roar. The room shook, dust flew everywhere, shadows screamed, smiles twisted into a ferocious expression. Emma realized that she had just shaken its power. She gasped, trying to touch more names, hoping to free the souls. But with each touch, Emma endured a searing pain, like thousands of needles piercing her head. She gritted her teeth and endured, tears streaming down her face. Flashes of the past appeared again. The bullied girl, locked up, left to die. All the cruelty and silent complicity replayed. Emma sobbed, pain and anger mingling in her heart. She knew that if she didn't continue, the soul would be trapped in this room forever. And the shadow would only grow stronger. The shadow took a step forward. The space darkened. The cold air tightened around Emma. The distorted laughter rang out again, this time sharper and more vicious. It was aimed not only at Emma, but also at the surrounding souls. The ghosts of the female students cried out, their eyes filled with despair. Emma understood that time was running out. Either she would decipher the wall, or she would be swallowed up with everyone. She gathered all her strength, screaming in despair, her hands pressing tightly against the central name again. Blood spurted from the crack, blue light bursting out strongly. The shadow retreated, the distorted laughter turned into an angry scream. But just when Emma thought she had hope, the entire room suddenly collapsed. The tiled floor shattered. A deep void opened up right under her feet. Struggled, trying to cling to the wall, but the suction from the abyss pulled her down. The shadow leaned forward, its twisted smile still shining brightly in the darkness. The soul's screams echoed everywhere, mixed with the savage laughter. Emma screamed, her hands flailing in despair. Then the darkness swallowed everything. Will Emma escape the abyss that opens up beneath her feet? Or will she be forever engulfed with the school's secrets? Watch the next episode to find out her fate in the room on the 4th floor. The tiled floor beneath Emma's feet shook violently, cracks spreading like spider webs, dark red blood spilling out. She clutched at the wall in panic, but everything crumbled. A distorted laugh echoed throughout the room, lingering as if taunting. Then, in a terrifying moment, the floor collapsed, opening up a deep, pitch-black void. Emma screamed loudly, her whole body floundering in the cold void. The wind whistled past her ears, carrying the cries of dozens of souls. Blurry white figures rushed past, their faces distorted, their eyes empty. They seemed to be caught in an endless vortex, never to escape. Emma struggled, her hands flailing to find a place to hold on, but there was only emptiness. Her heart pounded, her throat was dry, her screams disappeared into the abyss. For a brief moment, Emma caught a glimpse of a pale blue light at the bottom of the abyss. But the further she fell, the further that light became, then disappeared, leaving absolute darkness. A heavy feeling gripped her body, as if thousands of cold hands were pulling her down. From all sides, distorted faces appeared, whispering meaningless sentences. Emma realized that this was not just a place to imprison souls, but also a black hole that swallowed memories, where everything was erased and disappeared. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Emma shouted the names of the souls, hoping someone would hear. But in response, there was only a horrible echo. Suddenly, a hand reached out from the darkness, grabbing Emma's wrist. She was startled, her heart clenched from the cold. But when she looked up, she saw a long-haired ghost with bright eyes. It didn't speak, just pulled her toward a tiny patch of light. Emma screamed, trying to keep her balance, feeling like her life was hanging by a thread. Below, the abyss was still widening endlessly. The souls being dragged down were screaming, their wails mixed with evil laughter. Emma trembled, her hands still clutching the broken mirror as a symbol of survival. She knew that if she let go, she would disappear forever, along with the short, scary stories swirling around this abyss. The faint light above gradually grew stronger, thanks to the ghostly hand pulling Emma up. But with each step, the giant shadow roared, reaching out its giant hands to grab her. Emma screamed loudly, holding on with all her might. Her heart felt like it was about to explode. Finally, she passed through. Her whole body slammed into the cold, hard tile floor. Her breathing was ragged, her eyes blurred with tears. But Emma was still alive. The room shook one last time and then fell silent. Emma lay motionless, hugging the mirror tightly, knowing in her heart that the abyss was still there, just waiting for the chance to open up again. And she also understood that the terrifying ordeal had only just begun. Can Emma escape the darkness that surrounded her, or will the abyss swallow her forever? Stay tuned for the next episode to discover Emma's fate in the room on the 4th floor. Emma screamed as her body was sucked into the dark abyss. There was no floor, no walls, just endless darkness that swallowed her whole. The wind whistled in her ears, the screams of the souls echoing round her, making her mind spin. Her hands tried to grasp at the empty space, but only met cold emptiness. With each passing second, Emma felt herself being pulled deeper, away from the real world. In the dense darkness, pale blue lights began to flash, dimly illuminating the distorted floating faces. Some were the faces of schoolgirls Emma had seen before, some were unfamiliar. All of them wore expressions of utter terror. Their eyes were wide open, their mouths wide open, soundless, as if frozen in the last moments of fear. Emma trembled, tears welling up as she realized she was falling through the collective memory of the trapped souls. Distorted images followed one another, like a slow-motion horror movie. Emma saw the scene of students gathered, screaming, pushing a girl into a corner. The sound of crying and begging was drowned out by evil laughter. The scene overlapped, sometimes clear, sometimes blurred, but all of them converged to the same conclusion: dead silence. The girl disappeared, leaving only a cold void. Emma understood that this was the animated horror story of the souls themselves, memories that never fade, forced to repeat forever. Suddenly, a dry hand reached out from the darkness, grabbing Emma's wrist. She screamed, struggling, but the hand tightened and wouldn't let go. From the darkness, a face appeared, cracked skin, bloodshot eyes, a crooked smile. It was not like other souls, but like a monster created from resentment. Emma tried to pull her hand away, but the cold feeling penetrated deep into her bones, making her almost paralyzed. She could only scream loudly, hoping someone would hear. Hera blue light suddenly flared up, dispelling some of the darkness. The distorted faces retreated, revealing a gap ahead. Emma saw the long-haired ghost, still with its bright eyes, appear in the middle of the void. It reached out its hand towards Emma, as if to pull her away from the monster's grasp. Emma mustered her last bit of strength, reaching out to grab it. In that moment, the darkness shook violently. A scream tore through the space. The monster let go, and Emma was pulled towards the light. Her body fell heavily onto the hard floor, her breathing ragged. Emma opened her eyes, realizing she was in another room, still dark but no longer endless like before. The walls were stained with blood, and the tiled floor had wet footprints. The long-haired ghost stood in the corner of the room, its eyes no longer fierce but filled with deep sadness. Emma understood that it had saved her, but at the same time it was also leading her to an even more terrible secret. The distorted laughter rang out again, this time no longer echoing everywhere but echoing from a dark corner of the room. Emma squinted, seeing a giant black shadow gradually appear, the smile so wide it was distorted, the eyes glowing red. It was no longer just an illusion, but had taken shape, existing right in front of her. The souls of female students appeared around, screaming, trying to stop, but were powerless. Emma knew that she had reached the center of the darkness, the source of all curses. Will Emma have enough strength to resist the rising force? Or will she become the next victim in the room on the 4th floor? Follow the next episode to discover what awaits behind this distorted darkness. Emma opened her eyes in a daze, the heavy air pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. The room was dark, the only light coming from a small light bulb hanging from the ceiling, flickering continuously as if it was about to burn out. She pushed herself up with her hands, her whole body limp, her breathing rapid. The distorted laughter had disappeared, replaced by a terrifying silence. But Emma knew this silence did not mean safety, but rather the calm before the storm. She looked around. The blood-stained wall was still there. The wet tile floor had footprints, as if someone had just walked. Emma shivered and hugged her body, clearly feeling that she was being watched. In this cramped space, Emma felt like she was trapped in a sick game. She whispered a prayer, but the sound came out weak, quickly fading into the darkness. Tonight, she was completely home alone in the haunted room on the 4th floor. Footsteps echoed from the dark corner, slow and heavy. Emma strained her eyes but saw no one. The ceiling light flickered each time it lit up, revealing a dark figure standing a little closer. Emma choked, her heart pounding, her hands clutching the broken mirror she had picked up from the floor as her only weapon. But when the light went out, the space was empty again, except for the steady drip of water. The flickering presence left Emma exhausted with tension. Each moment passing like a century. Emma tried to walk towards the only door, hoping it was open. But when she touched the handle, the cold made her hand numb. The door did not budge, as if it was welded to the wall. She knocked hard, the echoing sound making the air even more stifling. Suddenly, a wheezing sound came from right next to the back of her neck. Emma turned quickly, but saw only empty darkness. She trembled, tears welling up, feeling like she was about to collapse in despair. Emma leaned back against the wall, hugging her knees tightly. The light bulb flashed again, this time illuminating dozens of faces pressed against the opposite wall. Pale faces, empty eyes, mouths moving silently. Emma screamed, closing her eyes tightly. But when she opened them, everything disappeared, leaving behind a smear of blood. She didn't know what was real, what was an illusion, only that every second here was a torture of the mind. The whispering returned, weak but clear, reminding Emma of the name she had just touched on the wall. That spirit wanted her to remember, wanted her to continue to find out. Emma wiped her tears, her eyes flashing with determination. Even though she was trapped, even though she had to endure this torture, she couldn't stop. Because behind all the horror was a truth that needed to be brought to light. A loud noise rang out from the dark corner, as if someone had thrown something heavy onto the floor. Emma strained to look in that direction, but the light bulb went out completely, plunging her into absolute darkness. In the silence, a distorted laugh rang out again, this time very close, right next to her ear. Emma screamed in fear, clutching the mirror, but not knowing what she would have to face next. Can Emma survive the night alone in the room on the 4th floor? Or will she be engulfed by the dark forces forever? Watch the next episode to find out the terrifying truth that awaits behind. Emma sat huddled on the cold floor, her hands still clutching the mirror as her last support. The space was pitch black, only her rapid breathing echoed. Suddenly, a strange sound rang out, startling her, and she raised her head. It was the sound of rain. At first it was distant, then it became clearer and clearer, as if a storm was pouring down right outside. The sound of rain fell heavily, each drop hitting the window in a steady rhythm. In that moment, Emma felt a fragile peace, but quickly realized the abnormality. Within the sound of rain, strange knocking sounds rang out. Every 3 beats of rain, there was a deep, resonant knock, clear and deliberate. Emma strained her ears to listen, her eyes glued to the misty glass window. On the glass, the streaks of rain formed strange shapes, like small hands clutching tightly from the outside. Emma's heart pounded, her hands trembled. She felt like someone was trying to communicate. Using the rain sounds to send her a message, Mo stood up and walked over to the window. Her breath was hazy on the glass. She gently wiped away the dust and moisture. Her gaze turned to the outside. But instead of the familiar schoolyard scene, Emma saw a vast darkness. In that darkness, a figure stood motionless in the rain, long hair covering his face, clothes clinging to his body. The figure did not move, but bright eyes flashed through the rain. Looking straight at Emma, she panicked and stepped back. Her heart pounding, the knocking sounded again, louder this time, more urgent. Emma trembled, trying to listen to the rhythm. She realized that it was not random, but a series of signals repeating. 3 short beats, 1 long beat, then silence. Some kind of message was being sent. Emma counted, remembering the Morse code she had learned, and her heart sank as she realized the string of signals meant help. Someone, or something, was calling for help through the rain. The figure outside the window remained still, but his eyes flashed with each knock. Emma was paralyzed, feeling as if she had been drawn into the game of the mysterious force. She shouted, "Who's there?" but only received the sound of the rain and the dry knocking. Rainwater suddenly seeped through the cracks of the door, running down the floor, forming a large puddle. From the puddle, distorted images appeared, stunned faces with open mouths, white eyes staring at Emma. Emma stepped back, her foot tripping over a piece of broken glass. When she looked up, the reflection in the mirror was right behind her. She screamed, turning around, but saw only empty space. The feeling of dizziness made her head spin, almost losing her balance. The sound of the rain grew more and more intense. The tapping sound merged into a continuous pounding sound, like someone's angry heart was imprisoned. Emma hugged her head, collapsing. In the chaotic moment, she suddenly heard a whisper among the rain. A weak, sobbing female voice called her name. That voice was not unfamiliar. It was the voice of the girl Emma had seen in her memories on the wall. That spirit was using the rain to communicate with her. Emma burst into tears, softly responding, promising to find a way to help. The rain outside seemed to get stronger. The tapping sound stopped. Only the rustling sound remained as a confirmation of that promise. But when Emma looked up, the light in the room went out. Only the faint light from the window remained, where the shadowy figure had disappeared. The terrifying silence returned, and Emma knew that another challenge awaited her. Will Emma find the true meaning in the message of the rain, or is it all just a trap of the dark forces? Stay tuned for the next episode to discover what is hidden behind the sound of rain on the 4th floor. Emma trembled and stepped back, her heart still echoing the rapid beat of the strange rain. The figure outside the window had disappeared, but the silence made the atmosphere even heavier. In that seemingly quiet moment, Emma noticed that dark red streaks began to appear on the opposite wall. At first, they were just a few tiny drops, but then they spread, forming distorted lines of letters. Blood soaked into every crack, dripping onto the floor. The pungent smell rushed straight into Emma's nose, making her choke. She approached in horror, her eyes glued to the letters that gradually became clear. They combined to form a sentence. "We have been betrayed." Emma held her breath, feeling a chill down her spine. As soon as she read it out loud, the room shook. The wind whistled through the cracks of the door, and the ghosts of female students reappeared, standing along the wall. They did not cry like before, but were silent, their empty eyes looking at Emma as if waiting for her to understand the message. Emma tried to calm herself, reaching out to gently touch the bloody letters. Instantly, a sharp pain shot straight into her head. The past scene came rushing back, as clear as if she were witnessing it herself. A group of girls dragged a girl into the last room, cursing and pushing. The girl sobbed and begged, but no one listened. When she collapsed, the others still laughed loudly, then left her alone. In the darkness, the girl never got up again. Emma burst into tears, tears mixed with cold sweat running down her cheeks. Memories disappeared. Emma collapsed, her hands still stained with blood. She trembled as she realized that this wall did not just record pain, but was proof of the truth. The bloodlines were sealed cries for help, only appearing when someone dared to face them. Emma wiped her tears, whispering that she would bring everything to light. But as soon as she finished speaking, the blood on the wall flowed more strongly, forming new lines. "Be careful. He's watching," Emma choked, raising her head. In the broken mirror on the floor, a giant black shadow stood right behind her, a twisted smile stretching from ear to ear. She turned around, but saw only empty darkness. A hoarse laugh echoed, spreading throughout the room, freezing the air. Emma retreated to the corner, her heart pounding. She clenched the mirror tightly in her hand, preparing for anything that might happen. The ghosts of the schoolgirls turned their heads in the same direction, their eyes shining brightly in the darkness. Emma trembled, knowing that the real manipulator was approaching. The room shook violently. Each brick cracked. Blood gushed out in streams, forming strange shapes crawling on the wall. Emma screamed, fell down, but still tried to stand up. In that terrifying moment, she realized that she was not only facing a wronged spirit, but also a dark force that was manipulating everything. A force has devoured the souls of innocent schoolgirls and turned the fourth-floor room into a giant blood cage can. Emma, find a way to confront the person behind the bloody writings. Or will she be engulfed in the terrible secret of St. Mary's School? Watch the next episode to find out what awaits her behind this blood-stained wall. Emma breathed heavily, the smell of blood still lingering in the heavy air. As the bloody words gradually faded from the wall, she fell to her knees in exhaustion. As her hand unconsciously pressed against the tiled floor, she touched something hard, small, and cold. Emma quickly withdrew her hand, then shakily picked it up. It was an old notebook, the leather cover cracked, covered in dried blood and dirt. The pages inside were yellowed, blurred in places, but the scribbled handwriting was still preserved. Her heart pounded as she opened the notebook. The shaky lines recounted each day, each moment. The writing style, like that of a young girl desperately recording the last minutes of her life. The first pages were filled with stories of being shunned by friends, threatened, locked in the fourth-floor bathroom. Emma swallowed. Each word she read felt like it was tearing her mind apart. In it, the girl wrote that she was cornered, with no way out, and everyone chose to turn away instead of helping. The next page, the handwriting was shakier, the ink blotched with blood. The last line before the page was torn off read, "If anyone finds this notebook, tell the truth. Don't let us be forgotten." Emma choked, tears falling down and wetting the page. This was no longer a legend, no longer a baseless rumor, but terrible true stories written with the blood and tears of the victims. Suddenly, the space around Emma shook, the darkness thickened. The ghosts of female students appeared, standing silently around her. Their eyes were no longer angry like before, but filled with despair and hope. They stared at the notebook, as if wanting Emma to continue reading. She flipped through the pages quickly, her heart pounding. The following pages detailed each disappearance in the school. Each girl pushed into the bathroom and never returned. Each page was a tragedy, a soul imprisoned. All shrouded in an eerie silence, Seema clutched the book to her chest, knowing she held the only evidence to bring the truth to light. But as she looked up, the darkness shifted, coalescing into a giant shape. The twisted smile appeared again, this time right on the ceiling. Crimson eyes opened, staring straight at Emma. A hoarse laugh echoed, drowning out the sound of her heartbeat and breathing. Emma trembled, knowing that this manipulator did not want the book to be revealed. The wall cracked. A giant hand reached out from the darkness, grabbing Emma. She screamed, clutching the book as if clinging to a last shred of hope. The ghosts of the schoolgirls rushed forward, blocking Emma's path. Screams rang out, green light bursting from them, causing the hand to retract in pain. Emma fell to her knees, her whole body shaking but her eyes shining with determination. She knows that she must keep this diary at all costs, because it is the key to breaking the curse. Can Emma escape with the ghost notebook? Or will she be swallowed by the darkness before the truth is revealed? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what secrets are hidden in the room on the fourth floor. Emma sat on the cold floor, her hands clutching the bloody diary to her chest. Her breathing was rapid, sweat running down her pale face. The room around her was strangely quiet, but just a heartbeat later, the space suddenly shook. From all corners of the room, ghosts of female students appeared simultaneously. They stood around Emma, eyes blank, mouths wide open as if screaming. But no sound came out. Then suddenly, the whole room echoed with a chorus of calls. Not from one individual, but from dozens of female voices at the same time. "Help us." The sound reverberated, lingering, hitting straight into Emma's mind, making her dizzy. She covered her ears, but could not stop the creepy sound from seeping into every corner of her soul. The voice was not only a cry for help, but also like a command, forcing her to act. Emma looked up, her eyes blurred with tears as she looked at each soul. Their faces were gaunt, their skin pale, their hair disheveled. Many of them had bruises or blood on their wrists. All were traces of a cruel death. In that moment, Emma felt her heart tighten, no longer just with fear, but also with deep sympathy. She whispered softly, promising to bring their stories to light. As soon as the promise left her lips, the ghosts raised their hands towards Emma. From their eyes emitted a blue light, illuminating the dark room. The light did not reassure her, but instead, it caused the space to shake violently. The wall cracked more, the blood-red words appeared again, this time not in fragments, but joined together into a long message. "The traitor is still here." Emma was stunned, her eyes wide open. The message made her whole body numb. She tried to find the answer in the diary, flipping through the pages quickly. The distorted words said that there was someone in the school who knew the truth but chose to remain silent. That silence was not only complicity, but also the reason why the curse could not be broken. Emma understood that if she did not find the traitor, all the souls would be imprisoned in this blood room forever. The soul's call grew louder and louder. The resounding sound caused the only light bulb on the ceiling to explode, fragments falling everywhere. The room was plunged into absolute darkness, only the blue light from the soul's eyes clearly illuminating their faces. Emma panicked, hugged the notebook tightly, trying to scream to suppress. "I will find the truth, trust me." Immediately, the call stopped, silence fell. The souls lowered their hands in unison. The light in their eyes gradually extinguished. But before Emma could breathe a sigh of relief, a hoarse laugh rang out from the darkness. This time it was not the familiar, distorted laugh, but a more familiar laugh, almost like a human voice. Emma shivered, turned towards the sound, but saw only a dark void. The diary in her hand shook, the pages automatically turning. On one page, a bright red line appeared. "The traitor is with you." Emma froze, her eyes widening in fear. Someone among the ghosts, or even a force she had not yet recognized, was playing the traitor. The space thickened, the atmosphere suffocating. The spirits were silent, but their eyes were fixed on Emma, making her even more confused. The question lingered in her mind. Was the traitor really a human? Or was it the same dark force she had encountered from the beginning? Will Emma be able to find the traitor hidden in the room on the 4th floor, or will she herself become the next pawn in the cruel game? Stay tuned for the next episode to see what truth will be revealed after the spirit's call. Emma shuffled through the dark room, her heart pounding as the blue light from the diary dimmed. The silence was frozen, only her own ragged breathing could be heard. She stopped when she noticed something standing tall in the corner of the room. As she approached, Emma saw that it was a large mirror, its wooden frame rotten, its glass cracked like a spider web. A thick layer of dust covered the surface, but strangely, the mirror still reflected a faint light from the darkness. Emma swallowed, feeling uneasy. She walked slowly, her eyes fixed on the mirror. At first, the reflection was still her messy hair, pale face, red eyes. But after a few seconds, the reflection began to distort. Emma's face was distorted, her eyes wide open, her mouth wide open, blood dripping from the corner of her lips. Emma screamed, backing away, but the image in the mirror was still watching. A creepy smile on her face. She trembled, holding the broken mirror in her hand to examine it. But the image reflected in the small mirror was completely different. Just her real face, tired but normal. Emma turned to look at the large mirror, and once again, it showed a different scene. Not only was she distorted, but also the ghosts of schoolgirls standing behind her, their eyes shining, their cold hands touching her reflection's shoulders. Emma turned around, but behind her was only empty air. A whisper rang out, coming from the mirror, a series of overlapping sounds, like someone was recounting their own tragedy. The scene in the mirror changed constantly. A girl tied up in a bathroom stall, a group of students laughing loudly, then darkness engulfed her. The animated horror stories were so vivid that Emma felt like she was being pulled into them. The image quickly turned into a dark vortex, sucking her in so hard that she staggered, her hands clutching the rotten wooden frame to keep from being swallowed. The mirror shook violently, the crack spreading, emitting a piercing screech. Emma saw in it her own image being replaced by another, a version of Emma with glowing red eyes, a wide smile, and bloody hands. That version raised its hand to wave, its mouth moving in inaudible words. But Emma sensed the meaning. "You will be me," she screamed, using all her strength to smash the broken mirror against the glass. A deafening explosion rang out. The mirror shattered into thousands of pieces. Each falling piece reflected different horrifying images. A hanging ghost, a girl kneeling and crying, a dark hallway with creepy footsteps. Emma stepped back, gasping, tears streaming. When the last piece of mirror shattered, the room fell into absolute silence. But from the darkness, the twisted laughter rings out again, this time clearer than ever. Emma realizes that the mirror is not just a reflection of memories, but also a portal connecting this world to the darkness that awaits. And she has just broken it, releasing something out. Has Emma just saved herself from being imprisoned in the mirror? Or has she accidentally opened the way for evil forces to escape? Watch the next episode to discover what awaits her behind the haunted mirror. Emma clutched the diary to her chest, her bewildered eyes fixed on the red words that had just appeared on the page. "The traitor is with you." The air was thick, the darkness seemed to press the four walls closer. The female spirits stood silently, their lifeless eyes still following her. But Emma clearly felt that there was something unusual among them. Some of the gazes were different, colder, filled with malice instead of despair. Suddenly, from the crowd of spirits, a dark figure separated. It was tall, distorted, walking slowly but echoing like thunder. Its crimson eyes flashed, a wide smile almost tearing its face apart. Emma stepped back, her hands shaking as she gripped the diary. The other spirits cried out as the dark figure advanced, the green light from their eyes flashing as if to stop it. But all were pushed back by a powerful cold air. The shadow spoke hoarsely, distorted, echoing from deep within its chest. "Do you think they need you to save them? You are just a pawn. It is your curiosity that keeps the curse alive." Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She screamed that the truth must be revealed, that innocent souls must be set free. But the hoarse laughter drowned it all out, the sound pounding in her head, making her dizzy. In a moment of confusion, Emma saw memories flash by. Not just the scene of the schoolgirl being bullied, but also the figure of an adult, the teacher who had witnessed and turned away, who had silently been complicit. The betrayal shadow was the embodiment of that betrayal, a force that nurtured resentment and turned it into dark power. It was not just a spirit, but an entity crystallized from lies, silence, and unacknowledged pain. Emma knelt down, the notebook in her hands, shaking, the pages turning violently. The words in blood appeared. "You must face it to be freed." Emma understood that she could not run away. She had to stand up, even though she was extremely scared. She screamed loudly, calling the names of the spirits, begging them for strength. Immediately, the green light from their eyes exploded, merging into a beam of light surrounding Emma. The darkness roared, retreating. Its crooked smile twisted into anger. But the beam of light only lasted for a moment and then gradually weakened. Emma clearly felt the traitor's power far surpassing that of ordinary spirits. It did not want to be freed, it wanted revenge. In its fiery red eyes, Emma clearly saw its desire to drag everyone into the abyss, so that anyone who had ever entered this room would never escape. This was no longer the story of a single spirit, but of revenge stories piled up, turning into a giant resentment that swallowed the entire school. Emma screamed loudly, her hand gripping the notebook tightly, feeling it burning hot in her hand. The pages glowed dimly, the last words appearing. "You must choose truth or soul." Emma trembled. Tears welled up, but her eyes gradually became steadfast. She knew that the upcoming decision would determine not only her fate, but also the fate of all the souls trapped here. Will Emma have the strength to face and choose the path of liberation? Or will the shadow of betrayal forever engulf her in rage? Follow the next episode to discover the terrifying ending that is gradually emerging. Emma clenched the diary in her hand. The light from the pages gradually brightened, illuminating the violently shaking room. The traitorous black shadow roared, its red eyes shining like fire, its twisted smile growing more and more terrifying. The female student souls cried out, reaching out to Emma as if begging her to make a choice. The air was thick with the smell of blood, every brick on the wall shattered. The room seemed about to collapse. Hoarse voice rang out, echoing from the black shadow. "Will you choose the truth and sacrifice, or hide and survive?" The words were like a curse, forcing Emma to make an immediate decision. Her heart was pounding, her hands were trembling, but her eyes gradually became determined. She knew she couldn't abandon the souls who had been imprisoned for decades. If she turned her back, the curse would continue, and the darkness would swallow up many more generations of students. Emma took a deep breath, shouting loudly, "I choose the truth." Immediately, the diary in her hand emitted a dazzling light, shining straight at the shadow. It screamed in pain, its body twisted and distorted, its crimson eyes gradually fading. The female spirits spoke in unison, this time no longer crying, but a mournful song that echoed throughout the room. The green light from them merged with the light from the notebook, forming a circle around the traitorous shadow. The shadow struggled, roaring, "You will never escape." But the voice gradually weakened as the light tightened. The dark patches peeled off, dissolving into smoke. Finally, the twisted, distorted smile shattered. Its entire body was torn apart, disappearing in the brilliant light. The room shook one last time, then fell silent. Emma collapsed, exhausted, but the spirits still stood around. They looked at her with softened eyes, no longer resentful. One of them stepped forward, her long hair loose, bowing slightly to Emma. The voice rang out, clearer and softer. "Thank you. We are finally free." Immediately after, each ghost faded away, dissolving into the air, leaving behind a silence that enveloped everything. The diary in Emma's hand burned brightly and then went out, leaving only ashes flying in the cold wind. The room was now empty. No more bloodstains, no more screams. But Emma knew this truth could not be buried again. She had to bring it out so that no one else would have to suffer the same tragedy. As the door behind her slowly opened, daylight flooded in. Emma stepped out, her legs trembling but her eyes determined. St. Mary's School was still silent, as if nothing had happened. But in Emma's heart, everything had changed forever. After the truth is revealed, will the school really be free from the curse? Or will the darkness still wait for a chance to return? Continue following Reddit Mystery to discover many other creepy, scary stories waiting ahead.